In the biting cold of a winter morning on an empty fog-covered road, a German shepherd lay motionless by the roadside. Its once golden coat was smeared with mud and streaks of dried blood, evidence of a recent tragedy. The proud spark in its eyes had faded, replaced by a hollow, dazed look, as its shallow breaths barely lifted its battered chest. The deafening roar of motorcycle engines shattered the eerie silence. A group of bikers, rugged and imposing, sped past like a storm. Their leather jackets gleamed under the flickering headlights that pierced through the thick fog. Some glanced at the injured dog lying there, but none stopped. A question lingered in the air. What happened to this dog? Was this accident caused by those bikers who had just sped away? The morning sun cast a warm glow over the suburban fire station where Max had spent the prime years of his life. Max, a majestic German shepherd with a golden brown coat and piercing amber eyes, was not just any dog. He was a hero. For years he served alongside the brave firefighters of Station 12, risking his life to save others. His name became legendary in the local community, a symbol of courage and loyalty. Max had a reputation for fearlessly diving into fiery infernos to guide trapped victims to safety. Stories of his bravery spread far and wide. There was the time he located a lost child in a smoke-filled warehouse, or when he shielded a firefighter from falling debris during a structural collapse. Max's instincts and unwavering dedication made him invaluable, earning him medals, ceremonies, and the adoration of everyone around him. But every hero has their limits. On a particularly harrowing day, the alarm rang louder than usual. A massive fire had engulfed an old apartment complex, and the blaze spread rapidly. Screams echoed from the top floor, where a family was trapped. Max, as always, was ready. His handler, Jack, a seasoned firefighter with graying hair and a weathered face, gave him a firm pat on the side. "You've got this, boy," Jack said, his voice steady but tinged with worry. Max darted into the inferno, his powerful legs propelling him through the thick smoke. He navigated the collapsing structure with the precision of a seasoned rescuer, his nose guiding him to the family. But as they made their way out, disaster struck. A support beam, weakened by the relentless flames, came crashing down. Max pushed the family to safety just in time, but was pinned beneath the debris. When the team finally pulled him out, Max's body was battered. His hind leg was fractured, his paw pads were burned, and the light in his eyes dimmed from pain. Despite his injuries, Max licked Jack's hand weakly, as if to say he had no regrets. Max's heroic career ended that day. His injuries were too severe for him to continue working. The vets did their best, but the once powerful German shepherd could no longer run as he used to. Jack, devastated by the ordeal, was left with an agonizing decision. Jack loved Max like family, but at 72, his own body was failing. Years of fighting fires had taken their toll, leaving him with chronic back pain and limited mobility. Caring for Max, now requiring constant attention and therapy, became an overwhelming challenge. With a heavy heart, Jack decided to send Max to a retirement center for rescue dogs, a place where heroes like Max could spend their remaining days in peace. The center was a sprawling property, surrounded by lush green fields and shaded trees. It was a haven for retired working dogs, providing medical care, comfort, and companionship. Despite the peaceful environment, Max struggled to adjust. Life at the retirement center was nothing like the adrenaline-fueled days at Station 12. Max spent his mornings lying on a soft bed by the window, his injured leg wrapped in a protective brace. The staff at the center were kind, offering him treats and gentle pats. But Max yearned for the life he once knew. His dreams were filled with echoes of fire alarms, the scent of smoke, and the weight of a child's hand gripping his harness. Each morning he woke up to the quiet hum of the center, a stark contrast to the chaos he once thrived in. The other dogs at the center had their own stories of bravery and loss, but Max often kept to himself. He watched as younger dogs came and went, adopted into loving homes. But Max now greying around his muzzle and with a permanent limp, knew his days of being chosen were over. One sunny afternoon, Jack visited the centre. His step was slower than before, and his face carried the weight of guilt. Max's ears perked up the moment he saw his old partner. For the first time in months, his tail wagged with a flicker of joy. Jack knelt down beside Max, stroking the soft fur behind his ears. "Hey, buddy," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry I couldn't keep you with me." Max leaned into Jack's touch, his amber eyes filled with understanding. He didn't hold grudges. For Max, Jack was still the man who had been by his side through countless fires, who had always looked out for him. "I wish things were different," Jack continued, "but you deserve better than what I can give you now." The visit was bittersweet. As Jack left, Max watched him disappear down the driveway, his heart heavy yet filled with gratitude for the moments they had shared. The days turned into weeks, and Max's routine remained unchanged. The physical wounds from his last mission had mostly healed, but the emotional scars lingered. The once proud hero now spent his days in quiet contemplation, his body growing weaker as time passed. But even in his solitude, Max's spirit remained unbroken. He still carried the instincts of a rescuer, the drive to protect and serve. Though he had been sidelined, Max's heart remained that of a hero. Unbeknownst to Max, fate had a different path in store for him, one that would test his resilience and redefine his purpose in ways he could never have imagined. The crisp click of polished leather shoes echoed through the grand hall of the charity gala. Marcus Grant, a man in his late 40s with jet-black hair and a perfectly tailored navy blue suit, strode confidently through the crowd. His smile was dazzling, but to the trained eye it was devoid of warmth. Marcus was a billionaire known for his generosity, or at least that's what he wanted people to believe. With a champagne flute in hand, Marcus charmed donors and posed for cameras, basking in the glow of admiration. His image was carefully curated, a philanthropist with a heart of gold, always ready to give back to society. But behind the scenes, his motives were far from noble. It was during one of these high-profile events that Marcus heard about Max. The story of the heroic German Shepherd, retired after years of saving lives, was making waves in the media. Marcus saw an opportunity not to help, but to enhance his public persona. The next morning, Marcus made a grand gesture. He arrived at the rescue center in his sleek black limousine, accompanied by a team of PR professionals and a camera crew. The staff at the center were taken aback by his presence, but they were hopeful. A billionaire adopting Max would surely mean a life of luxury for the retired hero. The cameras rolled as Marcus knelt beside Max, offering him a gentle pat on the head. "What a brave soul," Marcus said, his voice dripping with practiced sincerity. "Max deserves a second chance, and I'm honored to give it to him." Max, unaware of the man's true intentions, wagged his tail weakly. For a moment, it seemed as though his days of loneliness were over. At first, Marcus treated Max like a king, or so it seemed. Max was given a plush bed in Marcus's sprawling mansion, complete with high-end dog toys and gourmet meals. The media ate up the narrative, praising Marcus for his compassion. Photos of Max lounging by Marcus's infinity pool and videos of the billionaire walking Max along the manicured lawns flooded social media. Behind closed doors, however, the reality was starkly different. Marcus's interest in Max waned as soon as the spotlight shifted. The gourmet meals were replaced by scraps, and the plush bed was moved to a cold, isolated corner of the mansion. Marcus's interactions with Max became brief and mechanical, devoid of genuine care. The mansion, despite its grandeur, was a prison for Max. He had traded one form of loneliness for another, and the warmth he had once felt with Jack was nowhere to be found. As Marcus's social media following grew, so did his demands for attention-grabbing content. He began forcing Max into dangerous and stressful situations for the sake of dramatic videos. One day, Marcus ordered his staff to stage a rescue scene where Max was required to climb a precarious stack of boxes to save a fake victim. Despite his weakened leg and age, Max obediently followed the commands, his instincts to protect and serve overriding his pain. The boxes collapsed, sending Max tumbling to the ground. The crew laughed nervously, brushing it off as a blooper, but Marcus's expression darkened. "Do it again," he snapped. Max, exhausted and hurt, hesitated. Marcus's patience wore thin, and his true nature began to emerge. His once polished facade cracked, revealing a man who saw Max not as a living being, but as a tool to further his own ambitions. As weeks turned into months, Max grew weaker. His once bright amber eyes dulled with exhaustion, and his movements became slower. Despite this, Marcus continued to push him, oblivious to the toll it was taking on the dog. One particularly grueling day, Marcus ordered Max to perform in a staged rescue mission involving water. The icy pool was too much for the aging German Shepherd, whose body had already endured years of hardship. When Max hesitated at the edge, Marcus's frustration boiled over. "Useless mutt," Marcus muttered under his breath, shoving Max forward. The crew, uneasy with what they were witnessing, exchanged glances but said nothing. For the first time, Max felt a pang of fear, not from the task before him, but from the man who had promised him a second chance. The incident marked a turning point for Max. The once proud hero was now a shadow of his former self, trapped in a cycle of neglect and exploitation. Marcus, blinded by his obsession with maintaining his image, failed to see the damage he was inflicting, not just on Max, but on himself. Unbeknownst to Marcus, his actions were being watched. Among his staff, whispers of dissent began to spread. People who had once admired his public persona now questioned the man behind the mask. And Max, though broken in body, still held a flicker of hope in his heart. Somewhere deep inside, he knew his story wasn't over. The cold wind howled across the barren highway, carrying with it the distant hum of engines and the occasional crunch of gravel under passing tires. Max lay motionless by the side of the road, his golden-brown fur matted with dirt and streaks of dried blood. His breaths were shallow, his chest rising and falling with visible effort. The icy ground beneath him sapped what little warmth remained in his battered body. The spot where Marcus had left him was desolate, an empty stretch of highway bordered by frost-covered fields and leafless trees. The morning sun struggled to break through a blanket of grey clouds, casting a dim, lifeless glow over the scene. Max's body trembled with exhaustion, his injured leg tucked awkwardly beneath him. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, a sharp reminder of how long it had been since he last ate. His head rested on the cold asphalt, his eyes half closed, but his ears twitched at every sound. A distant car, the whistle of the wind, searching for some sign of salvation. Hours earlier, the SUV had roared away, leaving only tire tracks and a faint trail of exhaust in its wake. Max had stood there, confused and disoriented, his tail wagging faintly as he watched Marcus disappear into the distance. He had waited, believing in some small corner of his heart that his owner would return. But Marcus never came back. As time dragged on, the cruel reality began to sink in. Max limped along the roadside, his once powerful legs now weak and trembling. He sniffed the air, hoping to catch a familiar scent or find some clue about where he had been left. Instead, all he found was the bitter smell of cold earth and distant exhaust fumes. Cars sped past him, their tires hissing on the frost-covered road. Max raised his head weakly each time, his amber eyes searching for a kind face, a helping hand. But no one stopped. The drivers barely noticed the injured dog lying by the roadside, their eyes fixed on the endless stretch of highway ahead. A few glanced in his direction, their expressions fleetingly curious, before they looked away. One car, a sleek black sedan, slowed for a moment. Max lifted his head, his tail wagging faintly in anticipation, but the car sped off again, its red taillights vanishing into the fog. Max let his head fall back to the ground, a low whine escaping his throat. As the hours passed, the biting cold seeped deeper into Max's body. His breath came in visible puffs, his fur offering little protection against the winter chill. Hunger and thirst blurred his senses, but something within him refused to give up. Max's eyes, though heavy with exhaustion, still held a flicker of hope. Memories of kind hands stroking his fur, of warm beds and full bowls, kept him going. Somewhere deep inside, he clung to the belief that people were good, that someone would see him, stop, and help. The faint hum of another car grew louder in the distance. Max lifted his head once more, his ears twitching. The vehicle roared past without slowing, its tires kicking up a spray of icy slush that splattered across Max's battered body. He flinched, but did not move. His strength was nearly gone, his body crying out for rest. Yet, even as the world seemed to turn its back on him, Max's heart refused to surrender. He lay there alone and broken, but his amber eyes gazed out into the grey expanse with an unyielding faith that somewhere someone would stop, and his story would not end here. The distant growl of motorcycle engines echoed across the empty Texas highway, growing louder with each passing second. The roar was a stark contrast to the eerie silence that had enveloped the area all morning. At a dusty junction, where the road forked into two endless stretches of asphalt, a group of bikers appeared, their gleaming machines cutting through the dense winter fog. Ryder, the leader, rode at the front of the pack. His salt-and-pepper beard framed a weathered face, his piercing blue eyes scanning the road ahead with practiced vigilance. The thick leather jacket he wore, adorned with patches and studs, matched his rugged demeanor. Tattoos snaked up his arms and peeked out from beneath his rolled-up sleeves, completing his intimidating look. Behind him, the group of bikers followed in formation, their chrome bikes gleaming in the pale sunlight. Though their appearance was haphazard and rough, there was an air of camaraderie among them, a silent bond forged on countless miles of open road. As the group approached the fork, Ryder raised his hand, signaling the others to slow down. Something on the side of the road caught his attention, a motionless figure lying in the frost-covered grass. "Hold up," Ryder growled, pulling his bike to a stop. The others followed suit, their engines dying one by one until silence reclaimed the air. Ryder swung his leg over the bike and approached the figure. His boots crunched against the frozen ground as he drew closer, his sharp eyes narrowing. It was a dog, a German shepherd, its golden-brown fur matted with dirt and blood. The animal was trembling, its shallow breaths forming weak puffs of steam in the cold air. "Damn," Ryder muttered under his breath. His rough exterior softened as he knelt beside the dog. The others gathered around, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. "Is it still alive?" one of them asked, breaking the silence. "Barely," Ryder replied. Despite his gruff appearance, Ryder's movements were surprisingly gentle. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a bottle of water and a small pack of beef jerky. Carefully, he poured some water into his hand and brought it to the dog's mouth. "Here, buddy, drink up," Ryder said softly. The dog's amber eyes flickered open, clouded with exhaustion but still filled with the faint glimmer of hope. Max licked the water weakly, his tail giving a faint wag in response to the unexpected kindness. Ryder's heart twisted at the sight. "This one's been through hell," Ryder murmured. He glanced back at the group. "We can't leave him here." The bikers exchanged uncertain looks. "What if he's too far gone?" one of them asked. Ryder shot him a sharp glare. "Then we make sure his last moments aren't spent freezing to death on the side of the road." Ryder scooped Max into his arms, careful not to aggravate the dog's injuries. Despite the tattoos and leather jacket, there was something fatherly about the way he carried Max. He placed the dog gently into a makeshift bed they had fashioned from spare blankets in one of the bike's sidecars. "We're taking him to doc," Ryder said firmly, referring to a retired veterinarian they all trusted. With Max secured, the group mounted their bikes once more. The engines roared to life, and the convoy set off down the highway, their pace slower than usual to accommodate their precious cargo. The small veterinary clinic sat at the edge of a quiet town, its exterior unassuming but welcoming. As the bikers pulled into the gravel parking lot, the clinic's owner, Dr. Harris, stepped out. An older man with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor, Dr. Harris had seen his fair share of injured animals, but the sight of Max made him pause. "This one's been through a lot," Dr. Harris said, as Ryder carried Max inside. The vet worked quickly, assessing Max's injuries and stabilizing him. Ryder stayed close, watching intently as Dr. Harris cleaned the wounds and checked for signs of internal damage. Max lay still, his trust in these strangers evident in his calm demeanor. As Dr. Harris worked, he found something unexpected, a microchip implanted beneath Max's skin. He scanned it, his brow furrowing as the details appeared on the screen. "Marcus Grant," Dr. Harris said aloud, glancing at Ryder. Ryder's eyes narrowed. "The billionaire?" Dr. Harris nodded. "This dog belongs, or used to belong, to him. Looks like Max was part of some rescue program." The room fell silent. The bikers exchanged glances, their expressions darkening. "Let me get this straight," Ryder said, his voice low but laced with anger. "That rich son of a gun let this dog end up like this?" Dr. Harris sighed. "I don't know the details, but it's not uncommon. Some people adopt animals for the wrong reasons. Status, image, and then abandon them when they're no longer useful." Ryder clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. "Not on my watch," he muttered. The bikers gathered around, their initial uncertainty now replaced with determination. Ryder's voice rang out with quiet resolve. "We're going to find out what happened," he said, his blue eyes blazing. "And if Marcus Grant's behind this, he's going to answer for it." The polished iron gates of Marcus Grant's sprawling estate loomed tall against the grey sky. Behind the gates, the manicured lawns and glistening fountains of the billionaire's mansion stood in stark contrast to the harsh realities Ryder had uncovered. With every step closer, Ryder's resolve hardened. He wasn't just here for Max. He was here to expose a man who saw life as disposable, a tool for personal gain. Ryder, dressed in his signature leather jacket and worn boots, marched up the stone driveway, a thick folder clutched in his tattooed hand. The folder contained everything: photos of Max's injuries, veterinary reports, and the scan of the microchip linking Max to Marcus. A stern-faced butler intercepted him at the entrance, but Ryder's imposing presence left little room for negotiation. "Tell Marcus Grant I'm here," Ryder growled. Moments later, Marcus appeared in the grand doorway, his polished shoes clicking on the marble floor as he approached. He wore a smug smile, clearly unfazed by the unexpected visitor. "And who might you be?" Marcus asked, his tone dripping with disdain. "Ryder," the biker replied firmly. "I'm here about Max." Marcus's smile faltered for a moment before returning, forced and insincere. "Ah, the dog. Yes, I remember. What's this about?" Ryder opened the folder, spreading its contents across the hood of Marcus's luxury car parked nearby. He pointed to the photos of Max, battered and broken, and the report from Dr. Harris confirming Max's condition. "You abandoned him," Ryder said bluntly. "You left him to die on the side of a highway. That's not just cruel, it's criminal." Marcus's expression hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about," he replied smoothly. "Max was old and sick. I gave him to someone who promised to take care of him. If he ended up in that state, it's hardly my fault." "Cut the crap!" Ryder snapped, his voice rising. "You don't care about that dog, or any life for that matter. You used him for your image, and when he couldn't perform anymore, you dumped him like garbage." Marcus's smug demeanor gave way to irritation. "Listen," he said sharply, stepping closer. "Whatever you think you know, it doesn't matter. People like me don't get taken down by people like you. Reaching into his pocket, Marcus pulled out a sleek black wallet and flipped it open, revealing a stack of crisp $100 bills. He pulled out several and extended them toward Ryder. "Take this," Marcus said, his voice calm but condescending, "and take your little crusade somewhere else. Trust me, no one's going to believe a ragtag group of bikers over me." Ryder stared at the money for a moment, his jaw tightening. Then, with deliberate slowness, he took a step back and folded his arms. "Do you think I'm here for money?" Ryder said, his voice low but dangerous. "I'm here for justice, and trust me, I've got a lot more people backing me than you realize." Marcus smirked, tucking the money back into his wallet. "Do what you want," he said dismissively. "No one's going to care about one old dog." Ryder left the estate with a storm brewing inside him. Marcus's arrogance had only strengthened his resolve. Back at the biker clubhouse, Ryder relayed the encounter to his crew. "He thinks he's untouchable," Ryder said, pacing the room. "He's counting on people looking the other way. We're going to make sure no one does." The group began brainstorming ideas. Ryder suggested hosting a public event, a rally to raise awareness about animal abuse, using Max's story as the centerpiece. "We'll show people what he did," Ryder said, pointing to a photo of Max. "They need to see the kind of man Marcus Grant really is." The bikers, despite their tough exteriors, were deeply moved by Max's plight. They reached out to local shelters, animal rights groups, and anyone willing to join their cause. Flyers were printed, social media posts were shared, and plans for the rally began to take shape. Word spread quickly. The story of Max, the abandoned rescue dog, resonated with people far beyond the local community. Photos of Max and videos of his rescue gained traction online, sparking outrage and calls for accountability. Donations poured in to support the rally, and volunteers offered to help organize the event. Ryder's phone buzzed constantly with messages of support. Meanwhile, Marcus began to feel the pressure. News outlets picked up the story, and reporters started asking questions about his treatment of Max. His PR team scrambled to control the narrative, but the damage was already done. The morning of the rally dawned crisp and clear, the chill of winter tempered by a rare warmth in the air. Ryder and his crew arrived early, their motorcycles gleaming under the pale sunlight. They had chosen a central park in the heart of the city for the event, a place where their message would be impossible to ignore. Brightly colored banners fluttered in the breeze, bearing slogans like "Justice for Max" and "End Animal Cruelty." Volunteers bustled about, setting up booths, arranging chairs, and testing sound equipment. A large stage, adorned with images of Max, stood as the centerpiece of the gathering. By midday, the park was buzzing with activity. Hundreds of people had gathered, their faces a mix of anger and determination. Families, animal lovers, activists, and curious onlookers had come together, united by the story of Max. Ryder, standing at the edge of the stage, surveyed the crowd. His gruff demeanor softened for a moment as he saw children holding signs, volunteers distributing pamphlets, and even a few people with their own rescue dogs in tow. "This is bigger than I ever imagined," one of the bikers murmured beside him. "It's not just about Max anymore," Ryder replied. "It's about every animal that's been hurt, abandoned, or forgotten." When the rally began, Ryder took the stage. His voice, steady and commanding, echoed across the park as he recounted Max's journey. He spoke of the heroics Max had performed as a rescue dog, his loyalty and bravery, and the cruel betrayal he had suffered at the hands of Marcus Grant. The crowd listened intently, their expressions shifting from admiration to outrage as Ryder detailed the neglect and abandonment Max had endured. Then came the video. The screen behind Ryder lit up, showing clips of Max's condition when he was found, his matted fur, his trembling frame, and his battered body. The footage also included segments from Marcus's social media posts, highlighting the stark contrast between the glamorous image he had portrayed and the reality Max faced. The final clip, taken by one of Ryder's crew during their confrontation with Marcus, captured the billionaire's callous dismissal of Max's suffering. Gasps rippled through the audience, followed by murmurs of indignation. The video quickly spread online, shared by attendees and volunteers across social media platforms. Within hours, the rally had become a trending topic, with hashtags like #JusticeForMax and #HoldHimAccountable dominating the conversation. News outlets picked up the story, broadcasting the footage to a national audience. Prominent animal rights organizations issued statements of support, calling for an investigation into Marcus's treatment of Max and other animals under his care. The pressure was immediate and overwhelming. Marcus's carefully crafted public image began to crumble under the weight of scrutiny. Sponsors withdrew their support, and business partners distanced themselves from the embattled billionaire. As the rally continued, Ryder introduced Max to the crowd. The German Shepherd, now recovering under the care of Dr. Harris, was brought onto the stage. His once dull eyes now sparkled with life, and his coat, though still marked by scars, had regained some of its sheen. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers a mix of admiration and encouragement. Max, ever the loyal companion, stood proudly beside Ryder, his tail wagging softly. "For too long, animals like Max have been seen as disposable," Ryder said, his voice firm. "But today we're here to say that every life matters. Max isn't just a dog, he's a survivor, a hero, and a symbol of what we can achieve when we stand together." Tears glistened in the eyes of many in the audience as Ryder knelt beside Max, placing a hand on the dog's head. As the rally concluded, the tide of public opinion against Marcus reached its peak. Legal authorities, spurred by the evidence presented at the event, launched an investigation into his actions. Marcus, once untouchable, now found himself facing lawsuits and the collapse of his empire. His smug confidence was replaced by desperation as he tried to salvage his reputation. But it was too late. The truth had been exposed, and the world had turned against him. Max's story became a beacon of hope and change. Donations poured in to support animal shelters and rescue programs, inspired by the rally's message. Laws were proposed to strengthen protections for abused and abandoned animals, with Max's name often invoked as a rallying cry. For Max, life took on a new meaning. He became a beloved figure in the community, attending events and schools to inspire others with his resilience and unwavering loyalty. Ryder and his crew, once seen as outlaws, were now hailed as heroes for their role in bringing justice to light. The roar of motorcycle engines echoed through the open plains as Ryder and Max cruised down the endless stretch of highway. The wind whipped past them, carrying with it the faint scent of freedom and renewal. Max sat proudly in the sidecar, his golden-brown fur shimmering in the sunlight, a bandana tied around his neck fluttering with the wind. His amber eyes gleamed with joy, reflecting the bond he now shared with Ryder. Ryder had officially adopted Max, making the resilient German Shepherd his permanent companion. It was a fitting conclusion to their story, two survivors from vastly different worlds, now inseparable. Together, they had found purpose in each other, becoming symbols of strength, hope, and unwavering loyalty. The pair quickly became well-known figures in the biker community. Wherever Ryder and Max went, people greeted them with admiration and warmth. They were regulars at animal shelters, schools, and community events, sharing Max's story to inspire others. Ryder spoke with a newfound passion, urging people to take action against animal cruelty and to cherish the bond between humans and animals. Max, ever the loyal partner, played his part perfectly, his calm and confident presence reminding everyone of the resilience of a heart that refuses to give up. For Ryder, every mile on the road was a reminder of how far they had come. For Max, every pat on the head and smile from a stranger was proof that kindness still existed in the world. Meanwhile, Marcus Grant's world had crumbled. Public outrage over his treatment of Max and other animals left his reputation in shambles. The once polished billionaire found himself isolated, his partnership severed, and his public image irreparably tarnished. Under immense pressure, Marcus was forced to issue a public apology. In a final attempt to salvage some semblance of goodwill, he announced that he would permanently cease all video content involving animals. Moreover, he donated a significant portion of his wealth to animal shelters and rescue organizations across the country. Though his actions were seen by many as too little, too late, they marked a step toward restitution. For Max and those who had suffered like him, it was a small but meaningful victory. Inspired by their journey with Max, Ryder and his crew decided to take their mission further. They established a charity fund called Wheels for Paws, aimed at rescuing and rehabilitating abandoned and abused animals. The fund provided resources for veterinary care, shelter improvements, and adoption programs, ensuring that no animal would be left behind. The bikers organized rides and events to raise awareness and funds, often bringing Max along as the face of their cause. Over time, they helped save hundreds of dogs like Max, offering them a chance at a better life. Ryder often marveled at how Max's story had grown beyond them. What began as a single act of kindness had blossomed into a movement, uniting people from all walks of life in the fight for compassion and justice. As the years passed, Max and Ryder's bond only grew stronger. They became a symbol of resilience and redemption, their story etched into the hearts of everyone who heard it. One day, as Ryder and Max paused on a scenic overlook, the setting sun casting a golden glow over the horizon, Ryder knelt beside his loyal companion. "You've done good, Max," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "Real good." Max leaned into Ryder's hand, his tail wagging gently. The German Shepherd had found his home, his purpose, and a partner who would never abandon him. Ryder and Max's story continued to inspire long after their journey began. Schools taught children about the importance of kindness to animals. Bikers across the country joined the cause, and new laws were passed to protect animals from abuse. For Max, every day was a new adventure. For Ryder, every mile ridden was a testament to the power of love and the enduring spirit of those who refused to give up. Together they proved that even in the darkest moments, hope could light the way forward. The story of Max and Ryder reminds us that compassion can transform lives. It teaches us that no matter how far someone has fallen, there's always a path to redemption. Let their journey inspire you to act with kindness, fight for those who cannot speak, and believe in the extraordinary power of second chances.